Welcome to Bread for the People. I'm Jim Serpico. My guest today is the author of Pizza Czar. He's made pizza all over the world. He's a full-service restaurant consultant with a focus on pizza. He creates world-class pizza brands from the ground up, including custom equipment design, sourcing local ingredients, expertise on pizza ovens and tools, installation, ventilation, menu development, kitchen design, on-site training, brand positioning, and more. Tony Falco, welcome to Bread for the People.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk bread and
bread.
Those words.
We're gonna get into bread. You are a legend. It sounds from what I've read about you that we both grew up in households where our dads were characters, okay? So when I was a kid, and I'm talking like 10, 11, I would crawl in the front seat of my dad's Cadillac because the doors were never locked, and I would find under the front seat tire irons, knives, blackjacks, and occasionally a bullet. Now, as far as I knew, my father was a trumpet player. And he was. But there were nights he would come home literally with the window shot out.
Wow.
And he was a trumpet player for what they called in New York club dates and weddings. And he owned the company. And it's like DJ companies today where they would have 5 or 6 bands out at a night. And he was the house band at mob catering halls. And those were his buddies. Now, I'm not romanticizing or glamorizing or condoning it. It is what it is, and it partly shaped who I am today. Not that I'm involved in any of that, but obviously there's certain things that kind of rub off, or you have to make choices at a young age. From what I know about you, your father was into some stuff, a little different, which put you on a path to have to go to work at a very young age. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, I think in some ways, like, that experience, was part of this whole, like, unorthodox kind of path in life that has been, like, always there for me and for him because, yeah, I mean, you would want to really like sum it up quickly and say, okay, this my dad guy, Sicilian American who had, was involved in some things, but it was very different. I mean, he was a hippie too,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a hash smuggler, which now is like a legal profession. Like,
Right.
you can like, and I think he always thought it was going to be legal. But he was just off by like 30 years or something. But in general, it was very much like into Buddhism and nonviolence. And like his whole thing was like, he, I think he knew people in the world of various mobs, be it Italian American or Mexican or Southeast Asian or whatever. I think he operated in that world, but his form of armor and protection was karmic, nonviolent energy, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
Because his whole thing was like he felt like if people, wanted to use cannabis, that it might make them more peaceful and then maybe make the world more peaceful one day. He's been a vegetarian for like 50 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he, definitely it definitely shaped my life. He left, he had to go on the run, like when I just first got into high school. So yeah, I had to start working very early on. My mom is from Baltimore, from a working class family in inner city Baltimore. And she, she was very, very tough lady. She still is a very tough lady. And she gave me a really strong work ethic. It was like, was not, I mean, I always liked to side hustle,
Mhm.
but she was very insistent that I get a job, and, nothing too fancy. She's like, it'd probably be good for you to clean some toilets, probably be good for you to do some real manual labor. And I think it was, and I, f- I really, I really enjoy working and that's where restaurants really kind of stuck into my life. Is I just really enjoyed the people and that work, real work where you could look at the day's work and see it. I worked in briefly in the tech world and in some offices, and it's not for everybody.
Definitely not. Speaking of loving the work and the camaraderie, I think you're referring to. You have a quote from the book that says, "I loved hanging out at the bar with friends. After I'd smell like a cross between a fresh baked pizza and a campfire. It was awesome." I
Yeah,
love that smell.
yeah,
I totally relate to what you're talking about. I
yeah.
don't know what it is about it. Um, Maybe it's because you put in those long hours and that's the result. And it smells like a place you want to be. I get it, man. I get it, and I also get that you kind of found camaraderie through the restaurant business, which is something I long for because I have found camaraderie through the TV business. I don't have a television show shooting right now, and as a television show creator in that profession, you don't always have a show, right? There could be many years and gaps, um, and you miss having something for 5 to 7 years with the same people every day and working those long hours, and then seeing that finished product, even though you're exhausted. The camaraderie was one of the best parts of it. And since I started doing the food semi professionally, I've been doing it as a lone wolf. And I kind of long for figuring out a way to get into a situation where I could build a team and have that camaraderie.
Yeah, I mean, I have intersected with production people through my work. I used to do a lot of music festivals. I used to do a lot of, we would do some catering for film and things like that. And I've been uh, like shot some TV shows and pilots and things like that. And I do. There's a definitely a connection. It's like when I was talking about like that. It's not so much that necessarily that we want to do this specific thing. It's more that we just don't fit into the regular world of like it's kind of like school. It's like I liked school all right, but like I didn't like the learning and the reading and that part of school I like, but like the like sitting in a sitting here when they tell you to sit here and going here when they tell you to do like I like the it's always something different, and I feel like, and then also that the work needs to be done no matter what. There's no like, okay, well, we'll put this off until tomorrow. It's like there's the kind of insanity of like production work, and whether it be in the restaurant business or in your film and TV world, is that people are just this attitude of like, hey, we're just gonna do what we got to do to make this happen. And it's like it was very um to me that kind of lifestyle, I just, and the people that lifestyle attracted, I think was very cool. And I always wanted to do like TV and film. I was a big film nerd as a like kid growing up in the 90s. Like, I mean, I loved
What
going
kind of
to
movies?
the I really loved what they would have called in the 90s like indie cinema. I remember seeing like uh La Haine in the movie theater in '96. Linkletter stuff because I grew up in Austin. Robert Rodriguez, like Quentin Tarantino, obviously. I mean, and then grew up with my dad with showing me like Godfather and Goodfellas and all that stuff, and all the great Italian American cinema stuff. I loved uh, Kurosawa.
Sure.
Huge fan. Um, and tried to work my way through as much of the class. I mean, once when you like you find a movie that you love, like, and then you say, well, I mean, if you like Reservoir Dogs, you should watch La Samurai, and then it's like now you're on this like kind of like peeling back layers of history and going back through it, and oh, you think Star Wars is cool? Wait, you should see Hidden Fortress, and it's like that kind of thing. It's endless, right?
Yeah, isn't it the same with bread making and pizza making in a way?
Absolutely. It's the same thing exactly. It's like, if you get, Paul Bertoli's, Cooking by Hand, and you love that book, it's like, well, go get Marcella Hazan's Essentials of Italian Cooking, and you go back and and then it's How to Cook a Wolf. And then it's like, you start peeling back the layers, and then there's stuff that's even more hard to find and deeper cuts. And, it's
Yeah.
addictive.
And then it goes the other way too. It's like I was talking to another guest who really talks about the philosophy of mastering like the basic. Actually, you talk about it too. Uh, you talk about mastering a base before you move on to toppings. She talks about it in reference to dough and simple sourdough, and like really master your sourdough, your basic sourdough. And once you get that down, start swapping out ingredients there, right? So it goes the other way. And then you start building a repertoire off of the base.
Yeah, I mean, and just like the appreciation for simplicity and which is, I think, the core of Italian cuisine is its simplicity of taking great ingredients and not messing them up, and like having a rhythm with the seasonality. I mean, I think that was something that I learned in the restaurant world. Definitely seasonality and farm to table cooking. I learned a lot at Roberta's and Vinegar Hill and these places I cooked at. And but at the same time, it was something that I had a reference point for, because when it was Gagutsa season, that was like all we ate for a few months, and everyone was super excited about it. And then the favas were coming, and then it's like artichoke season, and that kind of, it comes and it goes. And I think that a lot of people who aren't like super passionate about food, and live in modern American society, go to the grocery store and it's just, it's the same thing all year round. They don't understand the pulse of nature, and how, when you eat an eggplant that's in season, it's a big difference from just that like thing that's there all year round, like, or tomato, like, it's this reverence for, the impermanence of this like cycle of nature. I think is it comes down to simplicity, because like, when you talk about like a tomato season, you get a great tomato, like, what's the best recipe for it is just pick it while it's still warm from the sun, slice it, put a little salt and olive oil on it, walk away. I mean, that's the best.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess we live these busy lives, and most people just. I mean, I don't blame them for not knowing. It's hard for people to discover that in this day and age, unless you really have an interest in it. And I guess they're not realizing they're shipping these tomatoes in from all over the world, depending on what time of year it is.
There's a lot of intentional obfuscation by big corporate, food businesses. But I think, we're in a golden age of bread, and I think seasonal cooking right now in the United States. I mean, and I think we're definitely in a golden age for pizza. I mean, people are all over the country. I mean, there's no longer like a monopoly on great pizza when it comes to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it's really just not only all over the United States, but I'm just more and more seeing all around the world, people just really, making great pizza. I mean, and to me, it starts with the dough, and there's somewhat of a debate amongst pizza makers whether pizza is bread or not. And like, I think that's kind of a silly question. It's obviously bread.
Yeah. I mean, to me, and what do I know? I'm really new to this, but it's so much of the same techniques I use to making my sourdough that I use for making my pizza. I mean, there's no question there. at
Yeah.
all to me. But before we get into some of that, which I do want to talk about, I want to talk about Roberta's. They are an unbelievably great pizza restaurant. Um, at the time you worked there, you were telling the stories about a couple guys that were really great, and one of them didn't have the best bedside manner.
I don't remember who that is.
I think it was there. Somewhere the guy would like kind of scream at you about the dough, um, or I don't. It was some quote I read, but the bottom line is you got the skills out of them, right? These guys.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of things out of it, and I think I'm really happy that Roberta's has continued success also all around the world now,
Yeah.
and still, maintain friendships with a lot of great pizza makers that work there. Even people that I worked with are still there.
But in the early days, was it that there was not really a chain of command and no one taking accountability? Was that the restaurant where someone said either step up and take charge?
Yeah, well, it was just it wasn't a lot of people, and it was one room, and it wasn't very busy, and I was just kind of making pizza part-time, bouncing around. I hadn't even decided to dedicate myself fully to, I mean, I didn't know what to do with my life. I was in my late 20s, and I had met the owners while I was bartending, and yeah, I mean, I think it was Brandon that said to me, like, if you want to be the man, be the man. Like, because, I wanted, my work now as a consultant, like the main thing I do is like go into an environment of chaos and try to create order,
Right.
and try to create like operating procedures and try to create like consistency in the product. And in the beginning there was a lot of artistry, and there wasn't a lot of consistency, and there wasn't even really an idea for what the pizza should be like. It was it was a little freeform, which I think is a good thing. At first, I don't think you can do that anymore now, because the cycle of review and like people coming in with camera phone, I mean, there was no
Right.
camera phones really back then. I mean, if there were, it was limited. And so, you get a little bit of time as a new restaurant to kind of like improve and learn on the job. Whereas now I feel like you got to have the product dialed in right when you open, because it's like people are going to come in and just the cycle is just so fast.
Right. And then you don't want to get a negative review out of the gate. Otherwise, it's tough. I actually found my notes on that name. And forgive me, I'm going to butcher his name, and I hope it's the right restaurant. Nori Sujia? Is that it? He would say to you, if he didn't like your pizza, this pizza to me is shit.
Mauro.
Okay. Yeah.
Mauro. Yeah, Mauro was like one of the original partners from Italy, and no, he was great. I mean, but he was an artist,
Right.
And he would say this all the time. He's like, "I'm an artist. I'm not a pizza maker,"
Yeah.
Like, but he knew how to make pizza, and he had lots of great recipes and techniques and stuff like that. But like, yeah, he's an artist, and so it was a little, to me, it was like I needed a little more kind of, order. So like, and then they made me the first manager in the informal way that it happened. And, I kind of floated in and out after that a little bit. And then when I bought this pizza oven, I came back into the fold, and, eventually they gave me, after a few years, the title Pizza Czar. They gave me that title. I think it's kind of a silly title, but
was it a compliment? Do you think it was a compliment, or were they busting your chops? Or
I think they might have been busting my chops. I mean, I think it was also a very real like need, because now, like at that time, the company had a restaurant. They had a takeout and delivery. They had mobile operations, catering. A frozen pizza company was being developed. And so you needed someone who could kind of float around all those worlds, and I think that I wasn't in the restaurant all the time, because of that, because sometimes I was in the frozen pizza factory, or sometimes I was at a music festival, but like I was at all of the offsite stuff. So, when we popped up in Brazil, I was there. When we were in Toronto, I was there. Miami, Basel was there. Bonnaroo there. I did
So
the
these
freeze
music
art.
festivals, you would literally open a kiosk, a booth,
Hmm.
and fire up and make fresh pizzas.
Yeah, we had a wood fired oven. I bought the first one, and then we eventually had like a fleet of three, and we would pull them in and create. Like I really learned a lot about dough and a lot about pizza making doing the mobile operations, because when you are in a building and it's somewhat of a safe, consistent time and temperature and all that stuff, you kind of can only know the variables that you have. But like when you're out you know in the
Humidity,
wild, yeah,
the
and then
cold, the
there's like,
rain, it's
not
hot.
only that, but like trying to do, a pop up in, like I learned a lot, like doing the first South by Southwest pop up that was in Austin, where I bought the first oven, the mobile oven. That there was just different ingredients in Texas. I had to find different, like I tried to use fresh yeast when I first made pizza there, like we did in New York, but like nobody else uses fresh yeast, so it had expired unbeknownst to me. So then the next day after the first test batch, it was just a pancake or it was a tortilla. It hadn't risen at all. So I had to learn all these kind of different. I had to learn all kinds of, what are all the variables that are included. Like when I went to Brazil with Roberta's, I had to. I mean, that's a whole new world, but it's also a pizza world. So they had pizza ingredients. And when I went to Toronto, I did a pop up there, and um, had like mozzarella curds, a very common thing on the East Coast and in the United States. They didn't really have it in Toronto, so I had a hard time finding that to do the fresh mozzarella, and I had to use they have the Canadian flour, so seeing how
Right.
and that really prepared me for, and that's what the Czar thing was for, is like we can just send him to a different city, and he will recreate Roberta's pizza with just
Right.
the knowledge of the base from being in the restaurant for so long, but then also going out and doing it. So
I have an
you know, it
interest
was, it
in that
was
myself. My bread making right now is kind of relegated to the weekends in local farmers markets. But I've been making more and more pizza with the gosney stuff, and as I get deeper into this, I am interested in doing that in person. Um,
it's tough. It's a
I
young man's game too. I
yeah,
mean,
li-
and take any amount of hours that you want to operate, and then tack on a few hours of transportation, and then going back to the home base and cleaning everything, and then like the physicality of just being outside and having to pick everything up and move it. I mean, it was some crazy hours. I had a bunch of really great people on my team that had stuck with me through all those years. We were like a little group within the group, the mobile operations
I can
squad,
imagine.
and we
Y-
were like the pizza special forces.
I'd probably have to team up with someone like you said, because like I am this lone wolf, and I'm not the youngest guy, but I will tell you that on my weekends, man, I'm putting a lot of time in because I'm doing the baking and I'm manning the booth. It's a lot and it's
It's
physical.
yeah.
It's physical. People don't realize lugging the 50-pound sacks of flour, lugging the booth setup, loading the car, climbing in and out. Um,
Well, at least you have the rock boxes now, because I mean, I when I first bought that oven, that was like really the only option for like doing really good, wood fired pizza. Um, and it was, I mean, for the price, for like whatever $20,000, that oven, I mean, you could buy the whole setup and like 5 rocks boxes side by side, which would give you the same cooking capacity
yeah.
as one of those portable ovens. But I got to tell you, there was nothing better in my entire cooking career, from then and now. Nothing was better or more satisfying than cooking pizza in a wood-fired oven with nothing but blue skies above me, and on like a beautiful spring day with perfect weather. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just, and if all the preparation had been done ahead of time and I had a good crew and we were going and we're just cranking pizzas out, I mean, that was really, it was the best experience, of my cooking career. And I
Right.
don't know if I could match that. It was just really amazing, especially when we were doing things like, Freeze Art Fair or the South by Southwest. And it was just, there was all this energy around
Yeah.
us, it was really amazing. It was an amazing time.
And like I guess I'm young enough in my bread baking career, like literally 3 years in, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know. I kind of know, but I'm willing to pay my dues, man. Even though I'm a middle-aged guy, I know I'm new to this business and I want to do the work. I want to learn the art and I want to do the work so that I am ultimately an expert in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it takes. It's never too late to start. All it takes is the passion, and but yeah, I mean, those 18-hour days don't just roll off my back like they used to. But now, luckily, I get it in doses, so I'll be like, I just spent 10 days on site with my client in DC, and then I get a day or two rest, and I'm back here in my home base in the office. I'm doing reports and work for other clients and follow up, and I get a little body recovery and get to flex some of my other skills besides just being a grunt. But in those early days of in a restaurant startup, I mean, it's like not, you don't have like staffing sometimes hard, so sometimes I'm doing dishes till 2 a.m, which fine by me. Dishwashing is one of my favorite jobs, still is. Something very satisfying about
it's meditative,
going.
right? You're zoning
Yeah,
in on the. I do it. I have to do it.
you have to do it. There's no choice. You have to do it.
Yeah. I really want to set the stage for the listeners now, though, so that they understand what it is you really do now. Okay, you
Yeah,
talked about being in D.C., so we'll play both ends of the stick here, which may not be too far from a reality. I'm a wannabe restaurateur. I'm going to call a guy. I'm not a guy like you. I'm going to call you. You are the guy. Okay, people must understand this. This isn't a random guy. This is the guy that you call anywhere in the world when you want to open up a pizza-related restaurant, right? And I'll be very honest. My dream, not that I don't know that I'll ever get there, but it would be bread/pizza based. And I see like the focaccia sandwiches and the porchetta and the stuff you post. Like that's slam in the middle of what I want to do. With the pizza and the Neapolitan-ish, but those types of sandwiches, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
yeah,
And you can do it anywhere in the country, in the world. It's not the water, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
But now to you, at what stage, like some of these guys who open a restaurant, how many years in the planning is it?
I mean, I think the longest project was almost 4 years, 5 years before it opened. The doors opened. The shortest from the time of engagement to opening was like 4 months.
Wow.
But that was just that's my partners in Brazil who are extremely on it. Like they've got 40 restaurants and bars. They are 100% professionals, which that was a very speedy opening. But generally the time when someone wants to like engage my services is if you are about to sign a lease or you've just signed a lease and you have this, ideally you have a blank slate, and I work with you to design a kitchen layout, a flow that's going to be efficient and that is going to match the style of pizza that you want to do, the service style that you want to do with where you are, the location where you are. And then we design the menu and the kitchen simultaneously. And then we start working on the challenge of sourcing. And that's sometimes it's really, well, it's never easy, but sometimes it's
Well, listen, where
You
I
know,
live, it's got to be a lot easier. I live in Long Island.
yeah,
We've got access
you-
to everything.
everything.
Um,
Yeah,
right? It's got to be pretty easy relative to opening a pizza place in Montana.
yeah, or Guyana.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but then there's like places that you might think of, because of what I do is like I never do the same pizza recipe twice. I never like sold the Roberta's pizza recipe to anyone, because well, A, it's in the cookbook. So anyway, and the New York Times video that I did with Sam Sifton that has like 10 million views or something like that. So like we let the recipe out a long time ago, but it wasn't mine, first of all, and then second of all, um, I didn't want to do it anymore. I
Hmm.
wanted to do something different, and so I want to do something different everywhere I go. So like when I was in DC just now, we were using some flour from Wade's Mill, which is in Virginia. It's been stone milling flour since 1750. Incredible stuff.
Right.
Um, one of the most amazing projects I was ever a part of, that I was very lucky to be a part of, was in Istanbul, called Jusina. And Istanbul is like a perfect place to make pizza because it's the Mediterranean. So, and it's where Turkey is, where flour originates from. So they have every variety. It's a real bread culture, so there's every kind of flour you could imagine. My clients were amazing. They were already sourdough bakers, so like we could just go to the advanced stage of the project. They had local cheeses, local meats, the vegetables were incredible, the herbs were incredible. And then take like Mediterranean, something like Greece or Sicily or southern Italy, but then add a layer onto that of like the connection that they have with the Middle East and the spice trade. And, you have all these like interesting spices and, so it was incredible. And then, contrast that with like a place like, Bangkok, where it's not a bread culture. It's a rice culture. They don't really grow wheat there. So you're starting, they don't have a long history of cheese eating and making. It's not the best place to grow tomatoes, so you're starting like already kind of at a deficit, and so you have to get creative.
Hmm.
Um, but that's where the fun really starts.
Yeah. And I guess the same principles go for within the continental U.S. Bringing it
Oh well,
to like South Carolina, where a lot of people from the east are moving, so there's probably a need for it, and
yep,
it's probably less saturated. Like where I live, I mean, in my town alone, we must have 12 pizzerias,
right.
and most of them are actually pretty good. Even though I do agree with something you said in the book about how there are a lot of bad pizza places in New York. I've gotten in debates with people about this. Um,
Yeah, I've not been an uncontroversial character in the pizza world.
yeah.
Partly just from just speaking what I like, my mind, and what I think is true. I'm not realizing how upset it will make people. I'm not trying to make anyone upset, or like, you know, talk bad about anything. But I mean, it's just a basic fact that like, you know, there's a vast amount of pizza places in New York, and that, they're not all great. Like some of them are really, really outstanding. And that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Austin, Texas, and there's tons and tons of Mexican restaurants, tons and tons of Tex-Mex restaurants. There's like 5 or 6 that I would recommend to someone.
Sure.
Um, that's just
Well, like you
that's the
said,
game.
listen, some of these guys are just trying to make money, right? Over,
Yeah,
being artists.
sure.
That's it. I mean, it is what it is. Especially, it. I do worry. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm doing this in Long Island, and I've looked into retail stuff, but the cost per square foot is so crazy, and there's so many pizza places, and out of those pizza places, there's a lot of good ones. Like, what would be the point? What would excite me is trying to bring it somewhere else.
Well, I think the smart money is in the Southeast or the Mid Atlantic because there's just so much money, and then the cost of opening it. But I mean, the smart money is not in the restaurant business in the first place. So, I mean, it's like I try to talk most of my clients out of starting a restaurant when they first call me. Um, it's definitely, there's a lot easier ways to make money. I mean, but if you have a passion for food, why, like, or if you really you want to do something that will make people happy, then that's the reason to do it, and pizza in the like segment of all restaurants is going to have a higher success rate than, if you wanted to open, some kind of like, I don't know, like obscure style, like, I want to do like West Virginian cuisine, in
Right.
the East Village, it's
Right.
like, I don't know how well that's going to go over, but pizza anywhere, pizza is the world's most favorite food, and as someone who's really into history, I think it's because it is the world's food. The world had to come together to create it. There's no pizza without the Columbian Exchange, with the tomatoes coming from the New World to the Old World, with water buffalo coming from India to Italy some random way, basil originating Southeast Asia. I mean, it all comes together, in Italy, sure, but like it's not even the Italians that spread pizza around the world. It's the Italian Americans, the diaspora, or even the non-Italian Americans who, innovated with technology like conveyor ovens and whatever you say about, whatever you have to say about like Domino's and Pizza Hut, they have spread pizza around the world, whether you call it real or not. I mean, it's their technology and their drive to create it. And it was really, I think, until the 80s that the Neapolitans kind of were like, okay, wait, this is our thing. Like, we should be, like kind of taking this back, and I think it's cool to see the waves of how it happens. This is the same thing happened with coffee, I mean, you have like coffee, various waves of coffee culture spreading, and
Yeah. And beer.
you know,
Yeah. Those are my three favorite things. I would love to combine them all.
yeah, no, I mean, that would be great. I mean, it would look at like that's the dream, right? It's like someone like one of my heroes in the pizza world, Anthony Mangieri. That's what he's got now. It's he's got arguably the best Neapolitan pizzeria in America, if not the world. I mean, I think he was named best in the world by the 50 best list. And then now he's got the Neapolitan Cafe in the morning where he does coffee, Naples style coffee and pastries. And
that's what makes sense to me. Just like common sense wise is always what I thought of.
Yeah. And he does it out of just a passion for, what he does and the culture. And, and he's been doing sourdough pizza for decades, and just, just such a hardworking, awesome guy. I mean, I think it's really to me, the best of the pizza makers, I think. And I have a lot of respect for what he does. And anyone who is following their passion, whether it's the kind of pizza I like or not. I mean, I like, pretty much all of it, as long as it's made with love. The places where they love is an absent ingredient.
Isn't it the same in most careers? It's like, you want to be an actor. Are you really doing it to become rich? I mean, I try to advise young people, like, that is absolutely the wrong reason to do that or any of this, because the chances are it's not going to make you rich. It's just the reality, guys. And people hate to hear that, but it is the way it is.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to love it. You got to want to wake up in the morning to do this shit. I fucking love waking up in the morning and going to a farmer's market.
Yeah.
I really do. I love to see the result of my work that night. And I love the customers. And I don't know. There's something about conquering the sourdough thing, and I feel good about myself that I was able to do it. And finally learn how to use Polish, which is, now that I slow down in the winter, something I've been working on for the last 4 months.
Cool.
You know, I love it. What the hell?
I mean,
what am I going to do with this knowledge? I don't know. Maybe it's a hobby in retirement. I really don't know.
I mean, the sourdough thing, when I make a sourdough pizza and then cook it in a wood fired oven, I mean, it's like this, this is something that the technology has not changed for hundreds of, if not thousands of years. I mean, the fermenting your bread naturally and then using wood fire. I mean, it's like that like we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast about the smell of smoke and pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it such a, I mean, there's something instinctual. I mean, fire, we evolved with fire, or fire evolved us one way or the other. That ability to like cook food and to control fire is so crucial to like modern human experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what really hooked me in with Roberta's, was this like just wanting to master the wood fired oven, and
yeah. I've never done it.
just,
I've never cooked in a wood fired oven. So
Bro.
my context is the rock box, to be honest with you, and I still get that same smell. I set up this whole covered porch in my back that's actually in the winter enclosed on the sides, and I'm out there all the time, and I'm entertaining. I love to have guests over and cooking these pizzas.
Well, what's cool about that is I bet if you did jump into a wood fired oven, you'd be pro day one, because the rock box is basic. It's very similar on like a smaller scale of, like how you put it in and turn it, and the speed of everything as it's happening, and how you use the flame to kind of color the crust, and you have to rotate it and you have to check the bottom and all that stuff. Is just happening on a bigger scale with the wood oven. And every wood oven is different. I mean, I've had some where it's like you put the pizza in and you barely have to do anything, where it's like where it comes out perfect. And I've had other ones where I had to really fight to like get the product that I wanted to come out of the other end of it. And then wood is also very different from one place to another. In Turkey, we had the wood, like, I was telling them how important it was that the wood be chopped very small. We call it triple cut, in the, like, if you're talking to a wood guy and you want to get it, you say you want it triple cut. It's like about, 3 inches square. And so the wood guy, they're like, the wood guy's here, he wants to talk to you. So I go out there and they're translating from Turkish to English.
Mm-hmm.
And the wood guy's there. He's like from the woods of, Anatolia. And he's like, he's like got this truck and this like big straw hat thing. And he's like looking at me very skeptical. He's like, show him. They're like, show him on the truck which size wood you want. And so like I search through this truck and I find this one small piece, and he's like, geez, he's rolling his eyes like, it has to be that small. Like, he's like, why? I was like, they're like talking to him, and they're like, well, he's our pizza expert. He came here to teach us pizza expert. And so then he says a bunch of stuff to them, and they say, so he says, if you're such a pizza expert, tell him what kind of wood that this is. And I was like, all right, that's fair enough. And so like I take the wood, and like I have no idea what kind of wood it is. But just looking at the bark and the fact that I've been ordering wood for a long time, I said, well, it looks to me it's like some variety of white oak, and they tell him that, and he looks at me and he's like, all right, fine, we'll deliver the small cut wood for you. Because it is one of the biggest things with a wood oven is to having the right wood that's dry and that's cut the right way, so that you can get this consistent flame. Because otherwise you'll get coal buildup, and then the coal buildup will result in a floor that's too hot, but not enough radiant heat.
So now, though, if you're going to do one of these, sometimes you're just going to say, for convenience sake, I'm going propane or gas in the rock box and have 5 of them lined up, right? So I can meet the demand and the speed, and don't want to deal with that with 5 ovens, right? It's okay decision to make.
In my work right now with that, like that instinct in the commercial realm translates into people using electric ovens, which has
the new deck ovens.
Since I've started consulting 7 years ago, they've revolutionized the pizza world. And I think
Yeah.
for what you lose with the sexiness and the mystery and the beauty of the wood-fired oven, you gain in the ability to focus on your dough and focus on fermentation. And then the oven itself is really like paint by numbers. You know, it's like once you dial in your set, like what style of pizza do you want? Okay, let's dial the temperature, and then you can control the power that comes to the bottom of it, the power that comes to the top of it. And then once you lock that in, then really all you have to do is hit your fermentation, build your pizza correctly. You put it, the oven part of it, you put it in and you take it out.
You don't even turn it.
Turn it once, you know? And it's, I mean, for me, it's great. Like I often think about, you know, if I were to, I mean, cause I didn't have like a master plan, after Roberta's, you know, it was a sudden thing. It was a falling out, you know, so it was not like something where I thought I was ever going to leave. You know, I thought that I was going to be there for the rest of my life pretty much, but so it goes. And, you know, I was like, well, I guess I'll start my own place, you know, seems like a good move. And I started looking for places, but then people were calling me and they were like, hey, you know, come to Brazil, come to Canada, you know, come to Lisbon. And it just started stacking up. And within a year, that was my full-time gig. And, but I think often, and I dream about opening my own place. And my biggest debate is whether I would go electric or wood, which are the only two choices for me.
Take it
Because
from
with the
me,
wood-
Tony. Don't open a restaurant.
For me, yeah, no, okay.
No,
My wife would
only
agree with
kidding.
you.
I'm only kidding. I'm throwing back at you. I don't know.
No, my wife would agree with you for sure. But I dream about it a lot, but I would go back and forth between those two because
I mean, if I was
you
doing
know,
the restaurant thing, from the little I know about the electric and talking to people, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. But I guess in my mind, I'm still. There's this guy in London peddling pizzas who uses the domes. He's got a truck full of Gosney domes.
yeah,
I guess part of me just keeps envisioning, because it's closer to what I do now. It's like being outside and racking up a bunch of those rock boxes or domes.
yeah. I mean, it's tough. With the thing with us is I don't necessarily even know how you would do that because we always had a home base, you know.
Exactly. And this is getting to the weeds, and I don't even know if this is part of your thing. What did like for me right now, one of my obstacles is, in a way, lack of a home base, because you need all these permits.
Yep.
Like you could fly under the radar at certain types of things, but there's a lot of them you can't. And there's doing inspections and stuff. So if you're going out of state, even when you're with Roberta's, and you're a New York-based pizzeria restaurant, how do you bake in Texas?
Well, it took a lot. It was a lot of, you know, I did a lot of planning ahead of time. You know, so I would have to, in the case of doing something like South by Southwest, you know, I had to find, I had to find a place to make a home base, a temporary one, and pay for it.
Aha.
You know? So I found like a commercial bakery where they made like, you know, cookies that you would sell at at the supermarket, or
I
like
gotcha.
Texas. Literally, they made Texas shaped cookies at this place and all kinds of other stuff. And so they had, you know, a place for us to load in. They had, you know, the size of the mixers we'd need to do like 1,000 pizzas a day, you know, to prepare everything. They had extra refrigeration space. I mean, because you can't just like rent a place that's already like functioning, you know, because most places are maxed out, you know. So you really have to find either a commissary kitchen that specializes in having like being like a communal kitchen, or a commercial bakery that just has, you know, your amount that you're doing for your little pop-up is not like going to impact their operation. So
Yeah.
I did that one year. Another year we did a commercial, like a communal commercial space. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of logistics, you know, it's a lot of logistics, you know, and that's where, again, like film production.
Yep.
what I've seen it like good producers have these like super tight timelines, and they're problem solvers, and they are researchers, and they are experts at lots of, you know, random things like, like
Location scout, getting
where
a
to rent
bakery real
truck.
quick. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, or like, how to use a ratchet strap and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
And so like, it was, that's you just, and you learn from your mistakes, and you try not to repeat them, and do it better,
yeah.
um, and that's really what prepared me more than anything for what I do now, because it's not so much about the specific, pizza that I'm making, or even pizza. I mean, I think I could probably do a good job consulting on like a place, someone opening a taco restaurant, because it's really about like having done everything so many times, and it's been fucked up, that like I know what refrigeration not to buy, like what, how to not lay a place out, like, just a lot of mistakes that I've made trying to like constantly, you know do these different one-off things. Like, they were always different, and I always took a learning from one thing.
Yeah. Two last questions. If the restaurant business isn't the way to go, and you half joking but seriously kind of advise against it, what is the way in the food business? Like, what is in bread making, pizza?
God, I don't know. I like giving it away for free. That's my favorite thing to do. I just got to figure out,
Did you like the
like,
frozen end of the Roberta's thing?
frozen's tough, man, because it's like you've really got to scale big, and those big corporate players are not messing around. You hear about you hear about small food brands getting bought, but like you don't hear about all of the efforts of those big corporations to kill those brands before they have to buy them.
Mm.
It's margins are tight. Everything is really like, is skewed to advantage the huge corporations that are involved. Some of the biggest companies in the world, like Nestle, Unilever, Kraft, I mean, these are monster global entities, and they make lots of money on frozen pizza. And what makes you think they're going to let you just move in on their racket?
Of course. Sure.
Like, so, the restaurant industry is much more fragmented. Domino's is more of a series of small restaurants than it is a like global behemoth like, Red Baron. So, I think I think it's interesting, frozen pizza. I think it's also interesting making products that are, that have like good solid ingredients, like incorporating frozen pizza that has sourdough or whole grains or things like that. But to me, it's not like the smart money. I mean, to me, the smart money in opening a restaurant, like, yeah, I mean, I'd say like you go to a B market, right? So like not New York, not Los Angeles, not Chicago, go to a Charlotte,
That's what I was talking about.
yeah, like go to, um, I mean, there's so many, like, go to Nashville, or, Denver or something like that, and just bring great pizza there. And keep it simple. Start very simple. Like, don't, like, all you have to do is look at who's successful, and, what do they focus on? Takeout and delivery. I think that's a big thing where you can be successful, is if you can have a small dining room and really focus on takeout and delivery, and figure out a model that makes money that way. But at the end of the day, the thing to do is, the thing that's going to get you through the hard times, the thing that's a obsession more than it is a, chasing money. You want to be chasing, a dream. If your dream is to wake up and cook in a wood-fired oven every day, then, if you can pay the bills, then you're fine. Like,
Yeah. It's a way of life.
for me, I love to travel. I love to meet new people, and, I love the challenges. I like, people asking me for advice. I like to research new ingredients and new techniques, and so I'm able to make a living and feed my family. And I feel very blessed for that. But yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not gonna be rich anytime soon. Like, and I don't care. What do I want to be rich for? Like,
You're
I got a
right.
great apartment in New York. I got a cool truck.
There
Like,
you go. And you got a great
you know,
family.
yeah, exactly.
So
I got
you're
2 great
rich.
kids.
You're just rich.
Wife is my business partner, who's the best. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
living the dream over here, bud.
I love it. Last question. Can you tell me and our listeners about one of your most memorable meals? It could be the company and why. It could be the company, it could be the food, it could be the ambiance. But is there a meal that might stand out that was really memorable for some reason?
Wow, so many. Um, you know, I think a real high point for me was I did a pop up in Mexico City, and we were also filming a pilot, and the show didn't get made. There's a lot of pilots get made, a lot of them don't get turned into shows, but it was a cool thing to shoot it in Mexico City. I chose Mexico City because like Mexico City was really the first global city. It's ground zero for like the Colombian exchange, and the idea was to explore the origin of pizza by going there and looking into tomatoes. Anyways, we did the pop up, we shot the thing, it was great, and so we had like our wrap lunch, and the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the great feeling of a good wrap lunch, because you know it's not like a restaurant like a Project Now where like I set it up, and then the beginning is just now. Like, we did the pop up, we shot the thing, it's all done, and so we went to this place called Bar El Sella, and it's in downtown Mexico City, and it was a Spanish style restaurant in Mexico City. After the Spanish Civil War, a lot of leftist and socialists moved to Mexico City, and some of them started bookshops, and some of them started restaurants. And this was just a really cool big restaurant, and they had the Spanish food had slowly evolved to Mexican taste, so there was also this like really spicy salsa, but it was this big table of really interesting people like Miwi, who owns this pizza place and Pizza Felice in Mexico City, who she's just a brilliant chef, and then the film crew was there, and we were eating like this whole beef shank with tortillas, and there was like this chorizo, and I mean, it was just incredible. And then we all had we had some cocktails and then some carajillos at the end, and it was just like,
Yeah.
it was, I felt at that point like I was living the dream.
Yeah, and you were with people you worked really hard with all week. There was a lot of hope. It's cool. It's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It's an honor to talk to you. You are.
It was great talking to you. We gotta actually like get a coffee or a glass of wine sometime and go deeper.
I would love to, man. You're in Brooklyn?
Yeah, Williamsburg.
All right. Cool, man. All right. Thank
We'll
you
make it
very
happen.
much.